amazing Kisra Campbell. She's the owner of Mindfulness Management and Consulting. And let me share a little bit about her. So she's a dedicated and passionate leader with a strong commitment to transforming communities and driving positive change. With a wealth of experience in nonprofit management, she specializes in developing and implementing sustainable programs that serve underserved communities. Her experience encompasses a broad spectrum of essential skills from board development and nonprofit marketing to public speaking, grant writing, and effective grant management. She's also well versed in nonprofit accounting and human resources, ensuring that all aspects of an organization function harmoniously to achieve its mission. Kisra, first of all, you are essentially like the nonprofit angel, is what
Thank
you're
you.
trying to say. For
Yes.
those that lead nonprofits, I work with plenty of nonprofits and I know how difficult it can be managing them. So tell me, what brought you into this field? Like what has your journey been like in the nonprofit world?
Of course. Hi. So it's been a journey. I love that you're using that word because that's exactly what I say. It's been a journey. I've been in nonprofit for a while. And I've noticed a revolving door of employees. And why are employees leaving? And it's usually because the nonprofit is not really sharing their mission and their vision. So their employees are not really understanding what's going on. So there is a breakdown, of course, of the tier. So how can we get these nonprofits up and running? Because if we lose our employees, we lose our mission and we lose our purpose in the community. So then our community starts getting affected. Stakeholders. So how can we bring this nonprofit and of course small businesses, because they're part of our community, flourish so that we all grow in our
And
community and we're all sustainable.
it's so beautiful that you mentioned that because first of all, if you're a nonprofit that even has employees
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
serve underserved communities, and if you're
correct.
a minority, nonprofit founder yourself, or you're the one who created that, it takes so much work and talk about like blood, sweat, and tears and sweat equity building a nonprofit, at least those that I've seen that are owned and founded by minority leaders within their communities. What were some of like your first roles into nonprofit? Have you always been around it since you were young? Or I feel like there are some who have just always been around nonprofit and some that don't even know that it exists. And then when they get older, they're like, oh my God, oh, that's what I want to start then. I didn't need to start an LLC. I meant to start a nonprofit. But what was your foray into this work?
I love that question. And I love that you point out, minorities and people of color. So yeah, my first role was in the community, was going into homes and seeing mental health, what was affecting our community, especially our community of color and students. And from there, I went into substance abuse. So of course, I'm still in my community. What is affecting our community of people of color? And at the same time, I'm engaging with nonprofits because I will say that nonprofits, it's what's building our communities, what's helping our community stay strong, right? So there's nonprofits that help others with basic needs, just shelter, food, especially in Massachusetts, housing, because our homeless rate is high. So it's cold, especially now in winter. So throughout just my field, then my sister kind of forced me into being a teacher. And I did this for about 3 years during COVID, but I still saw the same needs in my students as when I was in substance abuse or I was in homes with mental health. But at the same time, I saw my coworkers leaving jobs because the mission wasn't being carried out as it was supposed to. So now we have an issue with employees, and then we have an issues with our communities not being served. So I kind of said, enough is enough. I need to do something about it, even if it's one nonprofit at a time. So here I am, and I'm helping with grant writing because there's a lot of money to be helping our communities, especially our communities of color, like you said, in all fields, from mental health to education to substance abuse to small businesses. A lot of people forget that grants could be used for small businesses, for LLCs. So here I am, like you said,
Um,
an angel a little variable.
Yes, and I love it. I've been around nonprofit. It's, I mean, not nonprofit in itself, but since I was younger, I grew up through the church, Redeemer Lutheran Church here where I am in New Jersey. I've been going here since I was in fifth grade, and we would do so much outreach as youth, serving the homeless in New York City, midnight run, like midnight going into the city and feeding the
Yeah,
homeless and mission trips and the whole nine, I say in like the best way possible, because I know there are a lot of mission trips that aren't always doing like ground level work, but we're building sheds and building wheelchair ramps in rural Tennessee.
that's
And
where it's
so
at.
it was beautiful seeing that, and it's made me like love nonprofit all the more. But then as a business owner, when we talk about grants, there are a lot of business owners that I meet that are like, what do you mean? I thought all I could get was a traditional loan. And I'm like,
Right.
no, you can get grants too. There are things that you
Correct.
need. But when someone comes up to you and if they're like, I need funding for my business, sometimes they don't even know what a grant is or any of these things. What would you tell like a new nonprofit owner or a new business owner or someone that comes to you and that's like, okay, I heard about this thing called grants. Like, can you explain it to me? How do I apply for one? How do I get one?
Of course. So I would love to just like sit down and just have a chat. What is your mission? What is your vision? What is your goal? What is your market? What's your aim, right? That's what I first need, because there's thousands of grants out there. So we really need to pinpoint what it is that we want, and those key words, to get us that grant, to get us that money. So we would sit down, well, Zoom, however possible. We would chat, like you said. Let's figure out what is it that you want. If the information that I'm providing you like, then we'll book another session, maybe a little longer, 30 minutes. I could provide you, since I already know what you're aiming for, I could provide you a list of potential grants, and we take it from there.
That is beautiful. Demystifying and simplifying the grant process, because then you also do grant writing services. So if they're like, okay, you gave me this list of grants, I don't know if I have the time to be able to apply for them. How do they work with you in that term, like in that kind of relationship of you being their grant writer?
So then that would go a little bit deeper, right? So then we would pinpoint exactly what it is that you want, how much money it is that you're aiming for, and our services would go a little higher. And we would sit down and we would determine how far, because every grant has an expiration date, right? So how far the grant is from due date, and then we accomplish and we sit down, we do our research, we write, and we discuss it.
Which is also beautiful to not have to do any of these things alone and to be able to have a resource there with you, because sometimes these forms and applications can be time consuming
Tedious, yes,
and
very
tedious,
tedious.
and use, what the thing that I've learned, because we've had our vocal recording studio, which is on a historic main street in Boonton, New Jersey, in northern New Jersey, for over 6 years now, going into 7 years. And I've been able to get various grants for us. I have a master's degree level of education, and I was in like certain honors classes and such all throughout my academic, when I was at youth to high school. And even I look at some of these words that are on these forms and I'm like,
Yeah,
what is this? What are they talking about? And and it's not to say anything, but I have a master's degree in accounting and years of education. And so for anyone that doesn't have the knowledge of what even is this, or doesn't even have access to a computer, I think it's so imperative. I hope for a future with more like grant writing workshops that are made open to the local communities, because I find that I question, like, if I even have a hard time finding these and applying for them, what does it mean for those that don't have the same access to the resources that I have access to?
exactly.
And so I love that you also share about like serving underserved communities. Can you share with us a little bit more of like what brought you into? Because this is one thing that I've learned in entrepreneurship and small business ownership. Not everyone, of course, I know people are going to listen to this and be like, duh, but not everyone has the same mission and drive as you, right? And so that's why we need to know this mission. We need to know the vision. We need to know why your business is functioning and your nonprofit, why it's doing the work that it's doing. but most importantly, why are you? And I have such a passion for minority business owners. You know, my dad's Colombian. He came here when he was 8. He didn't have the same access to resources for a majority of his life. And I always like think of what life could have looked like differently if he had access to more resources at a younger age. But for you, what kind of lights your fire when it comes to underserved communities and like minority business owners and founders and
Well, I'll be very honest. Representation matters, especially in Springfield. And as a woman of color and a woman, of course, there's not that many that I see as collaborators in my community. So I love that I'm thriving in my community. But also because I love to engage with my community, to be honest. I love Puerto Rican and Black, and I love the way my community is and the way that they immediately know how I am, and they come to me very, very comfortably, and they start speaking to me in Spanish or, English, whatever. And it's comforting to me, and it helps me and it makes me want to do more for them. So if I can help nonprofits continue to provide that service, I'm all for it, because in a way I'm also helping my community through the background, in the background, by helping these nonprofits and these small businesses thrive and provide the services that our community need. So that, I think, that's what helps me sleep at night, and it fills my heart. And like I said, I work with different populations, and mostly what people need is love. It sounds kind of corny, but it's the truth. They just need attention, love, compassion, an ear, food, shelter, and it really is not that much. So if we could help, again, nonprofits, and small business owners provide these services, and if I could provide them by helping with grant writing, because the money is out there, then why not?
yes. And I think it's beautiful that you mentioned that of finding community and being within your community, which I think is such a beautiful feeling of this is where I belong. These are my people. They have
Correct.
my back. They understand me. They've seen me go through so many iterations, like a phoenix, like rising from the ashes and going through
Yes.
it again. And it's such a buzzword of, oh, like supporting minority business owners, or right, like supporting underserved communities. I feel like there's a lot of attention that's been shown on it, but realizing how much passion goes behind serving underserved communities is huge. And that's why I think it's beautiful getting to know nonprofit founders, those that exist within nonprofits, because what I see is this recurring pattern. And you mentioned this earlier on when you were speaking, right, of the revolving door that tends to happen. I don't think enough light is shown on how difficult it is for those people to leave because they knew that they weren't going to get adequate pay. These are kind of common things when you work in the nonprofit sector. My mom works in the nonprofit sector, has worked there for years. She works for an amazing camp, Christian camp based out of northern New Jersey as well. And it is a common thing. You're not going to get the same kind of resources that your friends in corporate get.
Right.
And similar to almost being a business owner too, right? Like you're not going to get that 401k. You're not going to get the health benefits. There are certain things that you aren't going to receive, but you're tied to that mission and to making
Correct.
sure that that community is served is so strong that you're willing to sacrifice those things. You're willing to sacrifice and get a few dollars, probably a lot of dollars off of pay, probably donating a lot of your time on already what you're working back. And I think that I wish we could have like a day where we could celebrate those who work at nonprofits and who keep the mission alive because they have to, right? In order to get those donors, in order to do the programming, you have to have that mission there of people believing in whatever mission that nonprofit has. And
Exactly.
for those that maybe that are listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I've had a nonprofit for years, or I want to open one, or, I'm in the middle of the process of like getting more grants and getting more funding. How do I make sure I keep my employees alive with our mission? What are some of the things that you think nonprofit founders can do to make sure that their employees are feeling, seen and heard and managed the right way
Right.
and invested in?
That's the key word, is managed the right way. And that's where a lot of upper management lacks. It's really truly knowing what their employees need and want. There's always like these memes on IG where they say like, oh, I spoke with my employee and we're going to have a conference. And instead of like listening to what they want, they give them like a pizza party, and it's like, come on now. So it's like getting to really know your employee, like going down to that human level. It starts, if you're that top tier employer, get to know who your employees are, show them some empathy. Because an employee who knows that their employer cares makes a big difference. Work-life balance. Make sure that your employees have a proper work-life, especially nonprofit and small business. It takes a toll. Like you said, we take in so much from the community. So be mindful of who your employer or your employees are going through. Making sure that their needs from benefits down to vacation times are met. Making sure that it's easy access to go speak to human resources. Make sure that all your policies are up to date. If you are organized as an employer, it will flow and it will trickle down to your staff. Kind of saying, if you ever saying happy wife, what is it? Happy wife, happy life. So, hey, happy employee, happy employer, so happy employee, happy employer.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
it's just, again, a revolving door. So I come in and I swoop in and I'm like, okay, what do your employees need? Let's listen to what they want.
Wow.
If you don't have employees, you can't run your business. And I will always say a nonprofit, no matter what, is a business. You have to run it as a business. Yeah.
It's as you're saying it, it's almost what's going into my head is you can't become passive. You can't become that passive founder, that passive boss that's like, oh, I know what they want. I know them. When's the last time you talked to them?
Right.
But I know them. I know they're happy. And I think that it can become very easy to become passive. And then that makes your passion passive too.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
you're right, you don't really care about them. All of a sudden they don't really care either. And deadlines,
Mhm.
hmm,
The
it's all
morale is
right.
down. Yep.
Yeah, it kind of trickles down. And so if you're a founder, if you own a nonprofit and you're finding yourself like, oh my gosh, I could definitely use someone to talk through this with. I definitely want to ensure that my team is happy, that the work that we're doing is aligned with our overall mission, that I know the grants out there. You need to be talking to our girl, Kisra. And
Yes.
where can they find you? Are you doing any or have any? I would love to ask like what kind of collaborations you're open to as well.
I'm open
But
to all collaborations.
ooh, all
I'm not picky.
things. Okay, so events, podcasts, lives,
Yes,
you are going all the way out there, ready to be seen, which I absolutely love. And you are based out of Springfield, Massachusetts.
I am, but I am very close to Connecticut, so I am down to visit anybody who needs my help in Connecticut, and of course, Western Massachusetts.
Yay. And where can do you have any a little bit of motivation or a little tip that you can, like words of wisdom, I like to say, that you can leave anyone watching?
I will say consistency. Consistency is key to everything in life, and being mindful. So mindfulness and consistency is key to anything in life, especially in a business. Always be mindful of what you're doing, and always be consistent with your actions.
Beautiful. And let me close this out too. So we're here with Kisra, who is the owner of Mindfulness Management and Consulting. And if you go to her LinkedIn profile, you're going to see that she's an expert in nonprofit management, board development, marketing, public speaking, and human resources. She's passionate about sustainable programs and impactful grant writing and management. You can find her on LinkedIn. You can find her on Instagram. What's your handle on Instagram again?
It is consulting mindfulness.
Consulting Mindfulness. And you can also, I'll put her calendar link in the description. That way you can book some time with her if you'd like to chat, if you'd like to network, talk potential opportunities. But Kisra, thank you so much
You.
for joining me today. We'll be doing an upcoming live on Instagram next week, and we'll be recording a podcast together too. So this will
I'm
not be the
excited.
last time you hear of Kisra.
No,
And I just want to thank you so much for the work you're doing.
thank you for the time and the space. I appreciate you.